Hey everybody, this is Mark Levine from EBMG, a property management firm, and I am here with Ed McCool from McCool & Associates, an insurance brokerage out here in the New York City area. So we wanted to talk about today Workman's comp policies. Basically, what are they? How important are they? And we're dealing with co-op boards, condo boards.
Right.
Do they cover board members as well? So
Okay.
I'll let you, since you're the expert, kind of run with it.
Thank you, Mark. Workers' compensation policy covers injury or sickness resulting from the job for any employees that are on payroll. Okay, so it is required by New York State. So if there is an employee on payroll, you need to maintain it, or else there is a penalty. And the penalties can be staggering. For every 10 days of not having coverage, it's $2,000.
Wow.
So imagine going 2 or 3 months without it. The Workers' Compensation Board catches up with you. It covers based on the payroll. Now, as far as board members, since board members are not compensated, would they be covered? The answer is yes, because workers' compensation also covers medical benefits, okay? So it wouldn't cover to compensate the board member who got injured, but it certainly could compensate them or reimburse them for the medical payments if they were injured as part of their job as a board member.
And they are considered to be unpaid employees of the co-op or condo, correct? So
Correct.
that would be why it's there. Workman's comp is for the employees only, but it also hits the contractors, which we'll talk about in another segment. We don't want to bore people too much about this in this long video. But
Right.
So, in your experience, have you seen a lot of buildings that don't have workman's comp in place and get tagged for that?
Well, I don't see them usually get tagged. Most buildings, or actually all buildings, should have workers' compensation in place if they have someone coming in to do work. So, I mean, if you have a super on payroll, okay, well, that's easy enough to know that you need workers' compensation. But there are a lot of buildings, especially these smaller ones in Brooklyn and Queens. What they do is they have the same person who comes in, he goes into every building down the street, he comes in, he cleans, he takes out the garbage. He doesn't maintain his own workers' compensation. If he were to get injured while doing that, he can seek benefits from the co-op. Now, what would happen then is, one, is the co-op, if they don't have workers' compensation, would be penalized by the compensation board. That's number one. And number two, they would still be responsible for his compensation benefits. So that is the reason why, if they have anyone coming in who doesn't maintain their own workers' compensation, they really should maintain a policy.
And they should put that person on payroll, right? If they're not a licensed contractor that's doing the superintendent work,
Right.
If it's a handyman service, let's say, for a lot of those smaller buildings, should they be putting them on the payroll so that they're covered, or is it kind of...
They don't necessarily need to put them on payroll. Once they put them on payroll, there's certain other things that they're responsible for, FICA and all. But by maintaining this workers' compensation policy, if that quote-unquote porter or someone who's not on payroll were to get injured while working on their behalf, they would have coverage in the event he was to seek workers' compensation benefits.
Okay, my last question, and you kind of got me thinking about this while you were talking. So I have, let's say, a super that's in a building, and he's on payroll. He chooses to do work for a shareholder off time.
Good question.
Personal work, nothing to do with the co-op. He gets injured.
Right.
Is he covered under the workman's comp policy?
Technically, the answer is no. Okay, once he's doing work for someone else, what I always say is follow the money. Okay, if the co-op is paying him to do work, then he's covered. Well, if he's being paid by the shareholder now to do work after hours, technically he's no longer an employee of the co-op. So in the real world, he's not eligible for workers' compensation. He's also not covered under the liability policy. I know we're talking about workers' compensation here, but he can also be sued now, and he wouldn't have coverage under the association's policy as well. So I always say the super working after hours is a bad idea unless you're going to run it through the co-op. So if you're going to do that, then the shareholder would pay the co-op, and the co-op would pay the super. In that case, he'd still be considered eligible for workers' compensation.
And then the co-op are kind of working as the middleman in the
Right.
transaction, which sometimes they don't want to do. So that's a discussion for another time in another board meeting. So, okay, well, I think that's helpful. If you want to follow us all over social media, we're on facebook.com/XOBradshaw. Everywhere else, we're at XOBradshaw. And if you want to give your social media details as well.
Okay. Best place to go is our website, www.mccool.com. And from there, you can follow us on social media. We do quick tip videos every week.
Till next time.
Thank you.